This is MichMash, a weekly conversation where we try to unjumble an important and sometimes under-the-radar statewide story that affects you. I'm Cheyna Roth.
And I'm Zach Gorchow.
Now, given that the legislature has been doing a lot this week, or maybe not a lot, but they have been in session for a long time, and they aren't done at the time of this recording, we want to give everyone a timestamp in case anything changes by the time you listen to this. It is 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, December 20th. Now, Zach, in the podcast, we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of what the legislature has been able to accomplish and sort of details of the machinations that have gone on. But for right now, I kind of want to lay the groundwork of some of that behind the scenes drama. You know, Democrats had days left of their trifecta, but it seemed like they spent more time fighting than actually passing bills.
It was just an astonishing collapse, particularly in the House. The Senate had some unexpected drama too, but really the drama and collapse happened in the House. And you know, we could probably do a 15-part podcast about it, but I'm going to give you the too long, didn't read version here.
Perfect.
Which is essentially that a year's worth, and even maybe more than a year's worth of tensions, drama, infighting, disagreements blew open this week. That, you know, if you look at this year in the Michigan House, the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, made a calculated decision essentially not to have very much session, not to move bills, do the bare minimum, get the budget done. That's it. I think as a strategy to avoid taking risks before the election. Well, it didn't work out. They lost the Democrats lost the majority. And all year long, they had told groups, they told their members, wait till lame duck, the period after the election. We're going to pass things then. And so there was this great expectation starting after the November 5th election. Here comes the avalanche of Democratic bills. And it just it collapsed of its own weight. Too many members were like, where are our bills? They're not happening. Wait, we don't have the votes for them. And Matt Hall, the Republican leader, I think sensed that there might be an opportunity here. And once Joe Tate, the Speaker of the House, kind of pulled the plug on negotiations for road funding, dealing with the forthcoming tipped wage law, dealing with the forthcoming sick time law, he marched his Republican members right out of the House. And between that and another Democrat deciding she had had enough, the House no longer had a quorum, which means they could conduct no more business, could not vote. And it just ended the whole works.
So, Zach, one, I find it very interesting that these sort of freaking frack dynamics that are going on between Republicans and Democrats. You've got Republicans who are willing to say everybody up and out of the room, and like they follow Hall exactly and go along with what he wants them to do. And then you've got Democrats where they can't get enough votes on bills that they want to pass from all of their members. You know, they have members that are like defecting and, you know, leaving and refusing to come in. What I'm curious about going forward, I know that 2 years is a long ways away, but in 2 years, there will be another election, including for governor. Do you think people are going to remember this and see Democrats as sort of like, oh my gosh, remember when we gave them power? Not anymore. What do you think?
I think of the 8 square blocks around the Capitol and the professionals who watched a lot of their clients' legislation or their association's legislation die. I think the answer to that is yes. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be some ill feelings among the greater voters of Michigan. No, I think it will be all about the next 4 years in Michigan and the candidates for governor and so forth. But make no mistake, in the professional class around Lansing, there is a lot of bitter feelings about what has happened. A lot of non-controversial bipartisan legislation was wrecked because of what happened.
So, Zach, in the podcast, we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of what the legislature has been able to accomplish. Like I said, at the time that we're recording this, the Senate is still in session, but they are planning to dig through, what was it, 160 bills?
I don't even know the exact number, but I know as of like 1 a.m, they had queued up at least 70 more bills. to pass. And that was on top of about 30 they passed late in the evening Thursday. They clearly made a decision, the Senate Democrats. We are not going to let this dumpster fire in the House be the only story of the end of the Democratic trifecta.
Right. Well, for now, the House is done, so let's focus on them. Democrats had days left of their trifecta, but they seem to spend more time fighting than actually passing the bills. So there's a lot of drama to unpack here. But before we get into that with Gongwer's Elena Durnbaugh, who's going to be joining us in just a minute, we're going to take a short break so that way we can pay some bills and keep bringing you all the MichMash that you know and love. Stick around.
Welcome back to MichMash. Joining us now is my Gongwer colleague, Elena Durnbaugh, our assistant editor and House beat reporter. Listeners, if you are following the drama, machinations, and anguish in the Michigan House of Representatives, I think it's fair to say, and I don't say this lightly, because there are so many great reporters at the Capitol. Most of what you learned was because of Elena's top flight reporting. Elena, welcome back to MichMash. How are you even awake right now?
What is awake? What is asleep? We're just going.
Well, let's set the stage a little bit to start. Democratic control of state government ends on January 1 when Republicans assume control of the state House. Democrats, especially in the House, which has been fairly inactive most of this year, had been signaling all year to this sort of post-election session known as lame duck as the time when Democrats would really move a ton of their policy priorities. Nothing like saving it until the last minute. This was going to be especially true if they lost control of the House. So, Elena, take us back to last Friday. The House was in session. That's rare on a Friday. And it didn't take too long for things to get weird. What happened?
Let me see if I can unsort my days here. So last Friday, there is a special session of the House. And that came after a week of not a lot of movement on bills. I can't even remember if there was minimal movement on bills over the course of the week, and House Dems were really struggling to get 56 on and big bill packages that were up for the week, and there were negotiations for roads, which is something that, we've discussed here on MichMash, Zach and I, is something that the governor said that she wanted to get done before the end of the year. To do this, there had to be a lot of bipartisan work. And House Republicans said that they wanted to see a vote on the preserving the tip minimum wage and the earned sick time. Those negotiations were falling apart. And at some point, they broke down, and House Speaker Joe Tate said that those votes weren't going to happen. This led to Minority Leader Matt Hall pulling the plug, walking out with his caucus. They had a press conference down on the first floor and said, we are not coming back to the chamber until there is a vote on these two policy items, and we're doing roads.
And this was still last Friday.
This was still last Friday.
Okay, this is all one day.
All one day.
So now we have all the Republicans are gone. And a whole series, the Democrats plow forward with a series of votes, 56-0 instead of 56-54 or whatever. And what starts to happen as it becomes not 8 p.m., 9 p.m.? I mean, it's very rare for the legislature to be in that late. It's almost unheard of for them to be in on a Friday night like this. What starts to happen as it gets later?
Democrats are getting frustrated. This is a caucus that has not been in lockstep all term. So to get 56 on the board is hard anyway. We see, people changing their votes as their colleagues are pressuring them to just pass bills. We see a bill fail because it can't get to 56. And then there's long periods of no voting as no one's really sure what's going on. We then see some House Democrats getting ready to follow Republicans out the door and go, because it's pushing later in the evening and there's not really any clear direction from anyone on what way they're heading or how long they're going. And there are a couple of different people that try to leave. It is Representative Karen Whitsett that finally around 10:30 leaves. She wasn't feeling well that night. And she wasn't the only ailing Democrat. Representative Reggie Miller recently had spinal surgery and has been using like a cane or a walker to get around and has people carrying her stuff. Long sessions are hard on her. And so Rep Whitsett said, enough is enough. I am gone. And she left. And that meant House Democrats did not have a quorum in the chamber with only 55 members. There could be no further voting. They adjourned for the evening.
So it ends in, the Democratic mood, it was very stricken. The sense of like they had intended to be going late into the night and they had lots of bills they intended to pass that were under a deadline. If they didn't get bills out of the House that had never passed before, because of the way the Michigan Constitution works, they were going to be dead, could not be revisited. And they still had dozens, maybe more bills in the queue, and those just died as a result. And it was, kind of a shock and devastation at that point. So then we get to this coming week. They come back on Wednesday, and the Republicans aren't there. Who else isn't there? Because the Democrats can have a quorum. There can be a quorum in action without the Republicans, but they got to have all their members. Who wasn't there?
Representative Karen Whitsett is still not on board with coming to Lansing. So
what is her
Wednesday.
reasoning? So on Wednesday, Whitsett is sort of the key player in all of this, right? She is the one Democratic holdout in the House who is sort of jamming everything up. Is that fair to say? Her refusing to come means that they can't get a quorum if there's no Republicans. Is that right?
Yes. House Democrats need Karen Whitsett
They
to
need
give
every
them
single
a quorum.
one. And
because
what is her
House Democrats aren't giving it to them.
Right.
Or
and
House Republicans aren't giving it to them.
Right. And what is her reason for not showing up? What are her demands? I guess let's treat it like a hostage negotiation, because that kind of feels like what this all turned into. Is she had like a list of demands in order for her to show up?
Well, the one item she very clearly wanted was water affordability. That was something that, she said on Sunday and remained consistent throughout the week, is that she wanted to vote on the water affordability package. She also was hoping, she was negotiating for the tipped wage and the earned sick time and the roads deal. She also was hoping to see votes on the birthing centers and maternal health package from the Senate. And then, because we were in the situation where the House had run out of time to vote on things, there weren't 56 members in the House who were willing to support the water affordability package. And that was a negotiation that was ongoing, was struggling, and couldn't readily be delivered. That was a problem. And then yesterday, Whitsett was hoping for $400 million for Detroit Public Schools. And
this was Thursday.
Yes, with Senator Sylvia Santana, who was not in the Senate on Wednesday, which held them up.
So, I mean, we could probably do like a 15-part podcast about the adventures of Karen Whitsett and what happened. But obviously, we don't, we can't quite get into all of that here, right? But in brief, can you just encapsulate the drama that unfolded with whether Karen Whitsett was going to come to Lansing or not? It was just on again, off again, on again, as best you can and succinctly as you can, because it's a long saga.
Right. So I think that what over the course of the last week was most clear to me when speaking with Rep. Whitsett was that she was tired of waiting on bills that she supported to be voted on. And that is after 2 years of kind of going along to get along. I'm going to support the speaker. I'm going to vote for things. And she was tired of waiting because, as we discussed, lame duck was a time when members were expecting to see their priorities come forward. And she felt like priorities of Black voters, her constituents were not being taken seriously. The Violence Prevention Fund was another thing that she was hoping to see a vote on. And so she wanted these things to be voted on. She wanted to be able to bring things back to her district to support them. It is probably worth noting that Whitsett is running for Detroit City Council.
Let me interrupt you here. Why couldn't she get votes on these bills? These are not like really off the wall or obscure thing. I mean, these are fairly Democrat coded, not demands, but like, things that she is hoping for. Like, what was the holdup for getting any of this done? Why didn't Tate just be like, okay, this is what you need. Fine. We're just going to throw it up on the board.
That is a good question. And I don't know if I have a good answer at this point for all of that, but I do know that the package that we kind of talked about the most this week with Whitsett was water affordability. And Whitsett was told that was something that was going to be voted on. And that she was kind of negotiating with Representative Abraham Ayash, the majority floor leader, and she was under the impression that would be voted on. There would be the 56 votes. She was then called by another member of the caucus, Representative Peter Herzberg, who was like, hey, I'm a no on water affordability. Now, those negotiations on the water affordability package were happening, according to Herzberg, as recently as yesterday. The bills, the House bills at least, couldn't go anywhere on that. So it was kind of moot. But why not put the bills up on the board for a vote? There weren't the votes. There were a lot of bills that throughout the term there weren't the votes on, and it was like we're not going to put them up. We're not going to run them. I can't really say I completely understand why those decisions were made.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot that a lot of reporters are going to be trying to dig into what exactly happened here in the next weeks and maybe even months to come, because all of this is incredibly unusual, really sort of punctuated by the fact that Speaker Tate at one point on Thursday did a call of the House, which is effectively saying, everybody butts in seats right now. If you don't show up, we are going to use the sergeants and have them come and make the lawmakers go and sit at their desks so that they can vote. And he did that. And it turned out that Whitsett was hiding out in Representative Hall, a Republican, as we remember. She was apparently hiding out in his office, which is a look and a choice. But she did not end up, because she was at the Capitol on Thursday, but she did not end up going into session. And after about an hour of this call to the House, Tate said, actually, we're going to pack it up and go home, which also feels like something that people are going to be pondering about for a while. Like, why even bother with a call to the House if after an hour you're just going to say, all right, we're done?
So I had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people yesterday about the way events unfolded between just before 1 and just after 2. I think that what is clearest is that there was a major breakdown of communication between House Speaker Joe Tate, his majority floor leader, Representative Abraham Ayash, Representative Karen Whitsett, and then there is the minority leader, Matt Hallpiece. All of these people were not talking at the same time. Tate wasn't talking to Whitsett. Whitsett was talking to Ayash, but Ayash wasn't on the same page at the same time as Tate. Nobody was on the same page, and negotiations broke down. And there had been a hesitancy to call the House. And then Speaker Tate made that call. And I haven't spoken with him, so I don't know why he made that call when he did. Whitsett came to Lansing with the understanding that there wouldn't be call of the House. That is the conversation that she had. And then shortly after her arrival, a call of the House was made, which freaked her out because she didn't want to come to the chamber to be locked in there and vote on things that she didn't support. That was what she had been saying since Friday. And then the call of the House happened, and that just further blew everything up. So I think the big takeaway is that the people who should have been talking yesterday were not all talking at the same time, and we're not all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Speaker Tate for a minute. An extraordinary week. You know, there's always legislators who are unhappy with their caucus leader, whether that's their speaker or the minority leader. But they usually, you know, they'll keep those things to themselves, or they only talk about them on, you know, without having their name attached. And it's usually just a couple people. But it felt like in the, you know, time has sort of stood still, but in these last many days, there has been this outpouring eruption of anger at other House Democrats toward Speaker Tate, feeling like this year, 2024, is on him, that the House did so little and crashed and burned. Can you just describe what happened there?
Yes. I would say that this has been brewing for a while. House Democrats have felt impatient. There was the way the MIPSers pension vote was handled at the budget during budget season in June, and the bills not being transmitted to the Senate. And that was something that a lot of House members thought was going to happen. And that's why they voted for it. And the school aid fund conversation was a mess. And there was a lot of frustration with Tate there because a lot of members felt like he did not deal honestly with them there. That kind of died down. We had the election. That didn't go well for them. They lost the majority, and, you know, we'll be coming back as a minority party next year. And then there have there was one session day between June and November, so they weren't coming in to do things, or really like get the things moved to the floor so they could just come in and vote after the election. And so then on Sunday, we have Rep. Whitsett saying aloud.
Give yourself some credit. She gave you a call or whatever. Just like you reached out.
I had a conversation with Rep. Whitsett on Sunday.
Let's not sugarcoat this. Whitsett reached out to Elena.
She went on the record
with her. And you talked to her.
She went on the record with
give you credit.
No. I appreciate it. But she went on the record with what a lot of people have been feeling, that the House has been held up because Speaker Tate wasn't doing enough to lead it. He wasn't. He was trying to keep too many people happy, not putting votes up on the board because he didn't want to put votes up on the board. And Whitsett went on the record and said, I think he has been historically ineffective as a leader, and he hasn't been running the show anyway. Anything House Dems have gotten done this year is a credit to our caucus members and our committee chairs, not to him. Which was echoed by a lot of people in the caucus after she said that on record.
So the House is done. There's quite a bit of stuff in the House that's not going to go forward now. That includes government transparency bills, gun reform legislation, police reforms. But the Senate is still going. I believe that as of our recording this, which is about 1:30 on Friday, December 20th, the Senate is in its 27th hour.
That's correct. I just went and looked at the TV channel for the Senate, and they are still there.
They're still there. They're still there. What could they do? What do they have in front of them that is worth being there so long?
That's kind of interesting too. Yeah, Zach, if you want to talk about what they have in there.
It's an interesting situation. The Senate still they have available to them hundreds of House-passed bills that if the Senate passes with no changes, can go to the governor. They can't change them. If they change them, then it needs House approval. That's obviously not going to happen. And I think they have made this decision the Senate Democrats, after watching the House implode, they're like, the heck with this. We are going to go all in. We're going to go extreme, the opposite direction. And it has been like a showdown at the OK Corral between them and the Senate Republicans all night on procedure and delay tactics. And we're going to push ahead and so forth. But they have moved a number of quite significant bills. I'll hit just a couple here that are at the tip of my very tired brain. How public bodies handle health insurance premiums for their employees, kind of tilting the scales back to have the employers pay more than the employees. That's passed. That's definitely a big one for sure. The opt-out issue with the smart bus system in Wayne County, saying, hey, local governments, you cities and townships in Wayne County, there's a lot of them that opt out of the smart bus system that I know a lot of listeners pay attention to. They're saying, or signs that you're not going to be able to opt out anymore. A slew of elections bills on how people who want to get petitions on the ballot or how candidates get on the ballot, those have passed. You could go on and on, but I mean, I believe they were planning something on the order of 100 bills to pass in the Senate. So it seems like and Elena can touch on what died in the House. But the Senate seems to have said, we are not going to let this be that the only story of the end of the session is that the Democratic trifecta collapsed and died in a dumpster fire, that we decided we're going to have the longest continuous legislative session anyone knows of, and we're going to pass everything we possibly can. So, but Elena, a lot did go kaput in the House that the Senate can't save. What kind of things there?
Yes. Let me try to remember the agenda. The first one that comes to mind is the FOIA package from the Senate. That legislation got the furthest it ever has. Got a second chamber committee hearing, was reported out to the floor. There was no vote on it.
Another one comes to mind is the sexual assault survivors statute of limitations. Can you hit that one quickly?
So this would allow victims of sexual assault to come forward and have charges pressed
to file litigation.
Yes. Would extend the period of time in which they can do that. There was also, I think these were bills that died because they couldn't get out of the House last week, but there was the second look legislation that would allow people who have been convicted to just have a judge relook at their sentencing, and juvenile life without parole to change the age to 19, I believe. And so that didn't make it out of the House last week. And I know that was a bill package that a lot of people were hopeful would make it out.
I'll mention one other one for our listeners here, because I just find it as like a good illustration of how this procedural disaster snared legislation. So there was a bill that would have provided greater public funding and assistance for juvenile justice defendant cases. So if you get as a juvenile, if you get charged and go to the juvenile justice system as opposed to the adult legal system, there's not the same public defender safeguards and setup if you can't afford an attorney. And so this was a bill to provide that. It was sponsored by a House Republican. It passed the House with heavy bipartisan support. It then went to the Senate, and last week also passed with heavy bipartisan support, but the Senate made one tiny change. They took out an effective date in the bill that was outdated. Not a really substantive change, but they made that change, which meant it had to be approved again by the House. And the House couldn't do it because they didn't have a quorum. And so that bill is dead. And, again, just kind of extraordinary that it's not just like super partisan stuff that got caught up in the wash here.
Zach, I kind of did want to ask you on your thoughts. Earlier this week, we had Governor Gretchen Whitmer tell Tate and Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks that she wasn't going to sign any legislation if she didn't get roads and economic development. With the House's implosion, that's obviously not happening, but we have the Senate passing bills and bills and bills and bills.
Well, the governor's words were really interesting. She said that the legislature should not expect, and I'm directly quoting there, should not expect that she will sign further bills without passage of road funding and economic development bills. Those two things did not happen, are not going to happen. But that's not a veto threat. It seemed to be an expression of frustration, maybe some saber rattling, but I don't think it's being taken very seriously. Clearly not. Otherwise, the Senate would have just gone home. I think they're more than willing to be like, okay, Governor, let's see if you really mean that. It did not land well with legislative Democrats, prompted Senator Santana not to show up on Wednesday and add to the chaos. So I she's already got a bill on her desk that would expand unemployment benefits dramatically, huge Democratic priority. I just don't. I'll be really curious to see if she follows through on deciding, you know what, since this all fell apart and I didn't get what I wanted, I'm going to start vetoing bills that I otherwise agree with. That would just be surprising. I guess we'll see.
Well, it sounds like you guys could use some sleep. So, Elena, thank you so much for joining us on MichMash, and I hope that you were able to get some rest and hydration.
Thank you.